Every empire, as we know, begins with a spark and a single idea that refuses to die. And so was the Ottoman Empire. The spark came from rugged hills of Anatolia. And in the 1200s, there was the Byzantine Empire, and it was fractured, and there were rival lords in between them. And from the shadows, there came a Turkish principality. And there was a man named Osman. Osman I was a great leader, and he had like this vision which would completely transform the whole of the world. Actually, it changed the map, and from his vision, there grew an empire. Although there were a lot of Muslims at that time as well, but even the Muslims weren't that united amongst each other. And and then towards Europe, there were like Christians, and no one could have imagined that these Christians would lose their lands, and the Muslims would make like this huge empire. And when we're talking about like this is like the Illuminati's wet dream that they want to create a one world government. So it is really important to understand that people, although we are subservient and we want someone to command us, but still remains the fact that no one can agree with another person. So I think the main unification process for the Ottoman Empire and for any great empire is religion. And that is really important because through the commandments of Islam and through the commandments of God, if God has said something, then it's really hard for one or the other person to disagree. Although there are still races and there's still factions, but what do you think about Islam as being the unifying factor for this Ottoman Empire? And was Ottoman Empire the peak of caliphate or a Muslim empire? And was it the most progressive? And was it like good for the whole world? Although we also hear, like we're going to tell you about the history, that there were many wars. And it was like in the past ages, war was a means of increasing your empire. Although if we see wars in today's world, it's like total destruction, and the people get nothing out of it, because the borders that were drawn after World War II, most of the countries do agree on those borders, and most of the people do agree on those borders. And with the advent of like fighter jets and nuclear bombs, now war is like a completely different thing. But in the Muslim era, war, especially in the Ottoman Empire, war was a means of getting more people to accept Islam, and for getting more territory, and for making this huge empire. So before I start on how the Ottoman Empire started, can you explain, do you think, that is my question, that Ottomans were the peak of a Muslim caliphate, and was it good? What do you think about all the wars that Muslims fought? Were they bloody or were they constructive? And
yes, first of all, your first part of your question is that was the Ottoman unifying and really unifying the whole Muslim world, because at its peak, the Ottomans had all the African belt, northern African belt countries are right up to Morocco. Morocco and Libya and Egypt and Tunisia all were part of the Ottoman Empire. And then towards the south, the whole of the Arabian Peninsula was part of the Ottoman Empire, with the exception of Yemen, I think. And then to the east, they had land right up to the Caucasus. They had Armenia, they had Azerbaijan, and in the north, they had conquered so many countries of Europe, right up to Hungary, like parts of Italy, Greece, and Moldovo and all those countries you're going to show the map, all of them were in the Ottoman Empire. Yes, there were two other Muslim empires, one of them the Persian Empire, based in Iran, and another very big Muslim empire in the Indian subcontinent was the Mughals at the end. Before the Mughals, there were also many other dynasties that ruled the subcontinent. But that was like three actually basic big Islamic empires. But the Ottomans, because they were having the holy lands of Makkah and Medina under them, and they were also having the Levant under them, the Palestinian area, the Baitul Quds, the Masjidul Quds under them. So they had the real, Islamic factor under them. And yes, you're right, all the countries in the African belt, they had different ethnic circumstances, different ethnic people, different languages. All the people in Europe that they had conquered, they had all different cultures, different languages, different ways of life. And the Arabs and all these, they had their own different languages and dialects and everything. But is being the Islam being the unifying factor, and Islam giving I'll tell you one thing, that how these caliphates combined so many countries and provinces under their rule, because they not only unified under the flag of Islam, but they also allowed all the provinces, you can say, or the countries that were under them in one single currency. And then they allowed all the people from all these states to travel freely and do trade and settle here and there. So these things, these kind of measures, they connected all these people. They thought that they were one people because of these things, And of course, because of Islam, because of the Quran, Arabic was a language that everybody. It was the state language. It was the empire's language. It was the language of the religion, and everybody wanted to learn. All the African countries, they were all they were all well versed in Arabic, and all the states of the empire, they were working in this one language. So that one language also unites the people.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, and that's like a good answer. So continuing with the history, in 1299, Osman declared himself the Sultan, and that moment, quiet and almost unnoticed, marked the birth of the Ottoman Empire. From the ruins of Seljuk dynasty, seizing towns and gathering warriors and promising glory under the banner of Islam, when Osman died, his son Orhan took the reins. And Orhan wasn't content with survival. He wanted strength. And that's how the empire started growing. He captured Bursa in 1326, a city so wealthy it became the Ottomans' first capital and symbol of permanence. And it was here in Bursa that the Ottomans built their identity, a fusion of religion, conquest, and of course order. And although you could see these early conquests as like brutal or something like the Ottomans being pro-war, but really and truly they had more architecture, they had more finance, they had more science, they were propelling in a lot of fields. And the territories that they took over, instead of oppressing these people, they actually helped transform these people. They educated them, they built their economics, and they helped in a lot of ways. So under another emperor or under another religion, when these places were suffering, when the Muslims took over, when the Ottomans took over, the places became more prosperous. And Urhan was also realized something profound. Empires need discipline. His brother Aladdin advised him to form a standing army, not volunteers but professionals. From that idea came something revolutionary, the Janissaries. So, who were the Janissaries? They were children taken from the conquered Christian families, and they were converted and forged into Sultan's elite guard. So, do you want to talk about these young Christian children who were taken from their families and converted into Sultan's army?
Well, that's a difficult question for me. But yes, I would like to add in one thing.
Something like the Spartans, I guess, because we also hear in history in the Spartan time where they used to throw their children into the forest when they were really young, and they waited like for them to grow up and
prove that they can survive.
Yeah, and when they were teenagers, they would come back, and then they would be true Spartans. And because you have to understand that religion is like really personal for anybody, and especially if you're born in a Christian family, you would obviously think that Christianity is the true religion. And back then, Christianity wasn't that diluted as it is today. And for the Muslims to take over these take the children of Christians, and because Christians were also humans, and they were very intellectual, and they were loyal, and they were good people, they had all the qualities, and then making them Musliman and giving them education and turning them into warriors, was this like a very genius move on the part of the Ottomans?
Normally what we have read and what we know about the conquest of Muslim all over, all these areas, Islamic teaching forbade the conquerors and the warriors to force conversion into Islam. There was never a forcefulness of conversion. There was always this choice that you want to stay in your old religion, you're welcomed, you just have to pay a small tax, which is called jizya, which is so bad things are talked about jizya. Jizya was a very small tax, and it was just because the Muslim warriors and who made their governments in those new provinces or new states, they had to manage their things. They needed some resources, so to maintain their army and their garrisons, they needed some money, and that was what that jizya tax was meant for. And the Muslims would say to those communities, to those people, that when we take the jizya from you, we are responsible for your protection from any other attack from outside the state. If anybody attacks, we are going to fight for yours. So the idea of Muslim conquest is not an idea of tyranny or of forced conversions or of torture and something.
I don't
like
think
that.
These children were tortured. I think
there is a big possibility. Yes,
because if you take someone like so young who's just a child, 3-4 years, he doesn't know about Christianity. Although you're taking him away from his parents, but the Ottomans used to educate them and school them, and they used to make them devoted Muslims. They were loyal not just to the Ottomans, they were fearless, and they had this oath to the Sultan, and they were called Janissaries. Today we also, in today's world, we call Janissar, and things like that. I think the Janissar word in Urdu came from the Ottoman time. So it might be like, of course, sooner or later they would realize that they were not part of the Muslim Ottoman legacy. They were Christians, and they could even go back to their own places when they were older and discover where they came from, where their parents were. But now, when they have seen this whole Muslim empire and
It was a
modern,
very modern, like you were talking about their architecture and their, the Muslims, the biggest libraries were present all over these Muslim states, in Egypt, in Baghdad. Every capital had big, huge libraries, and universities were not like just universities. They were actually places where all these, they were people based, personality based institutions, wherever there was a scientific mind, a researcher, a writer, people, students would just, flock around those people, and their homes would become sanctuaries of, education and all that, training and all that. And then when these people would get renowned, then the caliphs would call them to their, capitals, and then they would tell them to stay there in their universities, and then become really like, So that was a kind of system. So you were right in saying that there were so many sciences. There is such a long list of sciences that were promoted and discovered and worked upon in these Muslim eras, especially in the Ottoman eras, and many of those sciences still have not been like become faculties in universities and Western universities already. So Muslims were very, very modern. They in weapons, in arm production, in all the sciences, in social, the welfare of their people, and all because of Islam, the hygiene and
yes, the hygiene is very important, because in the Dark Ages, in the Europe's Dark Ages, they didn't used to take a bath for like an year and not change their clothes. And there was this one king who took a bath every month for 3 months straight, and people actually rebelled against him, because there was also shortage of water, I guess, in that time. And then we heard about this royal family, and they used to just defecate in their own palaces, and it used to get so smelly that after living in one palace for like a month or two, they had to just evacuate the place and go to another palace, because it was all filled with disgust.
Oh my God.
And also the plague, because the European cities were also built upon slumps, and there used to be a lot of rats, and a lot of the horses with their dung and their wastage, and everything was at the same place. So it was like Europe was like a disgusting place back then.
Hygiene is something that comes with Islam, because cleanliness, ablution, wuzu karna 5 dafa, and bathing is necessary in our religion for so many occasions. All this came, and with this cleanliness, and with this hygiene comes that open-mindedness and this clarity, which takes you towards like exploration and thinking about big ideas. But if you are like dirty, just imagine, and for you haven't taken a wash for 3 or 4 days maybe, then you don't feel like you feel depressed, and you feel like not like a scientific person. So that is a big contribution of Islam, that because of the hygiene, even if you are poor, even if you don't have any resources, but your cleanliness takes you to that next level of the thought process, So yes, you're right, because all this era,
there was also this thing that the water was contaminated. And when these plagues used to spread around the society, they used to think that the plagues came from the water.
Mm-hmm.
So the less the water used, the better. And plus, it was cold in Europe as well, and
Yeah.
they didn't have like this modern technology that we have, showers and hot water and stuff like that. So it was really difficult for them to be like hygienic all the time. And even now, I guess in Germany, they don't recommend you to take a wash every day. They think it's like a waste of water if you take a wash every day.
Yes, what I was just going to say is that because the religion told us how important cleanliness is, that awareness was not there with those people. Christianity didn't tell them all that. So there was no need to be clean in Europe. No? And that thing kept them a very backward and very stingy type of society.
Smelly society. Although I think a lot of us have seen these Europeans and Americans through a television screen or through a mobile screen, and most of us haven't
Movies.
experienced them firsthand. I still think that they're like pretty smelly if you get close to them. So Nadeem Ahmed is saying Assalamu alaikum. Dante Hell is here. He's saying hello broski. Thank you Dante for being here. Asma is saying Wali Wonders after so many days. Was such a joy to suddenly see you live again. We're all really happy. At least Wali Wonders is active. Thank you Asma. And Maha is saying hello everyone. And Asma is saying hey to Maha. And Maha saying very logical topic, and Asma is also saying so happy to see this topic being discussed. The Ottoman Empire story is really fascinating. Thank you. We also think it's like a really fascinating thing to tell you about. And Irfan Bajwa is saying this is such an important part of Islamic history. Really looking forward to the discussion. Thank you, Irfan. Thank you for taking so much interest in our discussion. And yes, this Ottoman Empire, there's this drama called Osman Ghazi and Ertugrul Ghazi and Osman Ghazi. So these are big dramas, and we are all such big fans. And it's recently been created by the Turkish media, and they have such good depiction of that time, and it's such fun to watch. But they're like huge long episodes, 100 episodes, and there's a lot of seasons and it's hard to really watch all of it. But I'm sure that a lot of people have watched some parts of Ertugrul Ghazi and they really love it. And it's like it was the most famous series all around the world at a point, and it was translated into many languages, and even in Urdu, and people used to watch it all the time on Pakistani televisions and on their phones, and they still are fascinated by the great history. And that's also a problem, that Muslims don't have their history. Like you were just saying, that sciences were developed by the Muslims. Even algebra was developed by a Muslim, and all of this scientific achievements, the basis of all our sciences were given by Muslims, but we don't have a proper historical, what you could say, like documentaries like the Americans have been making for the past 100 years from the 1900s, how great the Oxford and Harvard is. We don't have things like that for our Muslim heritage. So maybe this live stream helps you guys in knowing about. So Hafza Hamid is saying, wow, Wali Wonders are live. How? Javeria is saying hello. Sophia Williams is saying, Javeria saying, Wali Wonders never disappoints. Powerful topic and amazing presentation. Ram Nawaz live from India. Thank you, Ram Nawaz, for being here. Aruj Fatma is also here. She's like saying, love you guys. Mohammed Fazan is here. He's saying, falling behind in technology, Europe advancing in weapons and industry, but the Ottomans stay traditional. That's like why, and because of World War I as well, that the Ottomans like fell apart. Javeer Islam is saying, so proud of our history. Thank you for highlighting it. You guys are alive after so many days. You guys are alive after so many days. Everything okay? So that's Sophia Williams. Yes, unfortunately, I've been very busy. That's why we haven't been live. But now we have a list of like really amazing live streams and topics that we want to cover. And I've been doing some research, and we'll be giving you amazing content every other day, I guess. Will inshallah,
Hopefully.
that's so Hassan Harun is saying Hassan Harun is saying hello, Islamic boy, and Arnie saying hello Arnie. Arnie is like also a repeat viewer. So thank you all for being here, and please do like, share, and subscribe as much as possible. So coming back to Orhan. So Orhan further pushed the Ottoman Empire, and he took over Izmit, Uskudar, and Gallipoli in 1354. These cities are hard to pronounce, so pardon my French. So a fortress city, and they formed a fortress city on Europe's soil. And this wasn't just expansion, it was destiny crossing continents. Yes. By the time Orhan died in 1362, his dream was no longer about surviving next to the Byzantine Empire. It was about replacing it. And his son Murad took over that dream, and he made it into a reality, and it's now carved in history. He pressed into the Balkans, turning former enemies into vassals and allies. Bulgaria and Siberia followed, and Bulgaria and Siberia, like they're really important cities in like the history, and a lot of things have been revolving around them. And we'll discuss about that, but let's continue. Then there was the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, which sealed Murad's legend, because Murad won, and sadly he died on the field, stabbed by a defeated Siberian knight. A sultan dying at the peak of victory, the perfect omen for an empire built on faith and blood. So I guess we call Shaheed, and Murad had the most glorific shahadat of all the shahadats, because he was winning, but still he was like killed by, I don't know, we might have some recreation in a Hollywood or some movie. I will try to find that out as well, and it would have been like such a big moment. And his successor, Bayezid won, earned the title the Thunderbolt. He moved like lightning, annexed Bulgaria, besieged Constantinople, and crushed the Crusaders at Nicopolis in 1396. So, what's the fascination with Constantinople? Because Constantinople is now which country? Turkey. Turkey, Istanbul.
Yeah.
So Constantinople was like the main area for the Christians. It was like their city, and there was like
capital.
Yeah. So how can like the small Ottoman villagers or some backward Muslim people become so large that they take over Constantinople, which was the pride and joy of the Byzantine Empire, and it was the center of the Christians. And so many Europeans and the Crusaders, everything originated from that place. And then how did they convert this Christian city, Constantinople, into a Muslim city? And the what do you call the churches also, some of them were converted into masjids, and then there's like still controversy going on till this day. So what do you think about Constantinople?
Well, it was definitely the capital of the Byzantine Empire, and actually, if you look at the map of the Byzantine Empire, it was spread down into Syria, the area of Syria and the whole of Turkey, and Constantinople were part of the Byzantine Empire, and this Ottoman family and their warriors, they conquered this Syria, they conquered this land of the Turkey, which is now today's Turkey, and then they did not stop over there, but rather they went on to conquer all the cities, all the provinces of the Byzantine, which went right up to Hungary. Like, this is a very big thing, and the Muslim world, we actually don't remember, especially we are not taught this in our history books, that the Ottomans had conquered so many countries of Europe, right up till Hungary, Italy, and Moldova, Romania, Crete, this Cyprus. All these were Muslim, under the Muslim rules, and you're right, Islam was like came into them slowly, like there was no forced conversions, but as you can see, all the people in Turkey converted into Islam. They saw the glory of Islam, they saw the cleanliness of Islam, they saw the righteousness of Islam, they saw the justice of Islam, and as you know, it came naturally to them. And even in Europe, there are so many Muslims already in the area of Serbia and Bosnia, and Albania is a Muslim country. These are Muslim countries inside Europe, and because of these Ottomans, Islam went right into them. In Hungary also there are Muslims, but not that much. So this is like the thing about the Ottomans, that how they went all around, like 3 continents. You were just saying they were in Africa, they were in Asia, they were in Europe. So that made them really big.
Really big. And there was also like a civil war just when the Ottoman Empire was just forming. They had like this big civil war, and it nearly destroyed the Ottoman Empire. And it's like a really interesting story. So it's not like this great empire came out of nowhere, because there were a lot of problems, and Ottomans had to fight their way through it, had to make like strategies for like the future, and they really had to endure a lot of different things to make this empire. So from the east came came a storm far greater, and Timur the Lame, the Mongol conqueror, at Ankara in 1402, he crushed Bayezid's army, and the Sultan was captured. Some say kept in a cage until he died. For the first time, the Ottoman dream just like really cracked into different pieces, and his son tore each other, and his sons tore each other apart in a civil war that lasted over a decade. And the Ottoman Empire was like once more, it was like a shattered or a broken dream, because brothers fought over brothers for the throne, and what Osman had built like almost vanished, and there would have been no Ottoman Empire. But from the chaos rose Mehmed I, the man who restored unity and faith and reunited Anatolia and the Balkans, and ended the blood feud with a single vision: rebuild or be forgotten. So when Mehmed died in 1421, his son Murad II took over the sword, and he faced crusaders, rebellions, betrayals, and endured empire's backbone. And he crushed the crusaders at Varna in 1444, and then again at Kosovo in 1448, and he teach the Europeans a lesson they would never forget. And yet even he could not foresee what his own son would become, a boy who would change the world forever. That the story, this is like where the story truly begins. So do you want to add something to Mehmet and his sons and the civil war and the beginning of the Ottoman Empire?
Yes, this, every empire, every Muslim empire, every caliphate, they had had civil wars. They had had rebellions inside them, starting right from, Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Osman, even there were rebellions, Kharjites, who actually martyred Hazrat Osman, and one of them martyred Hazrat Ali. And when Amir Muawiyah took the throne in Syria, you were just talking about the Janissaries. Amir Muawiyah was the first one to actually build a foreign contingent of men. They were Turkish, because Turkish men had a big build-up, body structure, and he trained them and he made this a big contingent because he was afraid of the Arabs. He was afraid that there's going to be a rebellion anytime against him. So for his personal protection and for his, the protection of his fortress and all that, he employed these people. And they were very happy with him, and they were very, very loyal. They were extra loyal with him. And this, I think this tradition started with Emir Muawiyah. And the same was like kept by this Janissaries that you were talking about. So yes, and there was always civil wars, there were always rebellions, and there were always battles in the fronts, because either you are conquering another state or another state is rebelling against you, and they want to take back those states, border states, and there was war all the time. If you are not a warrior, then you can't remain a king for long. So all these warriors, kings that you're talking about,
and how
most
do
of
you
them
compare that to the modern world today? Could people do the same today? There's like a lot of wars going on.
Yeah, power is something that inherent in the military. I mean, one should understand, before the coming of these democratic states, before the coming of the nation states, or after World War II, all this, the whole setup of the world was changed. Before the First World War and before the Second World War, most of the world was under different empires, and all these empires were started, each dynastic empire was started by a warrior who actually defeated the old king and started his own dynasty. And then this warriorship was inherited by their sons and their grandsons, and all of them remained on the horseback. And as long as they were on the horseback, they were successful. And the moment they gave up the spirit of battle, and they delegated the wars to their generals and different other people, and they let them themselves sit in their castles and enjoy, the decline started for them. The same thing happened with the Mughals in the Indian subcontinent, that as long as the Babur and Humayun and his son Aurangzeb and all these 5-6 sons, kings, they remained on the horseback, and they kept on doing conquests, and they kept on doing battles all around their borders. They were successful, and they were like great kings. But the moment they just sat down in their castles and started having fun, and women and wine and dancing and music and art.
So in these stories we also see that we're going to discuss about that story as well. That because of power, because when a king used to die and another prince was to become the king, and there were like a lot of people that
Brothers.
could succeed. So the mothers and the wives and the female of that castle were like really important in all the decision making, and the females wanted their sons to be the next king. So they were always conspiring against each other, poisoning each other, killing, sending someone's son to a battle and then getting him murdered, and ambushing, and a lot of stuff, even throwing them down the stairs as well. All of the different methods you can see.
This is something very nasty thing about power. You know, power needs to be absolute. That's my dialogue. So when a king died, not only this thing happened in the Mughals, not in just in the Ottomans maybe, or it happens in every empire, in every kingship. When the king dies, if he has 2 or more sons, they are going to battle with each other. There are very few examples when the sons or the inheritors would divide the kingdom and live like peacefully and share the power. Because most of the times when there is power, the next who comes to take that power wants the whole of it. Power is such a thing. If you let the power be divided or shared with somebody else, you are always in this fear that you are going to be overtaken. And this fear is always like, you know, forcing you to like kill all your enemies. And the first enemies you're going to kill are the ones you find in your own house. That's very, very, you know, sad about this power game.
Yeah, you're right, but why do you have to kill your own brother? Because he's going to take over your throne someday?
Yeah, exactly.
That is like open season on your own family, because think of being born in such a family that you know that your father is going to die and you have like 12 brothers, and now they're going to go with on a war with each other, and only one will survive and become the king. The rest of them, they might disappear, or they might be banished from the land, or they might be straightforward killed, murdered and butchered. So what was the life of these people? I mean, it's like really hard to understand. First, they're born into such the best possible position that human can be in, and then they have to like fight with each other towards death. And
Right. All of his sons to be warriors. He would like all of his sons to be on different generals in different campaigns. So if a king has so many sons, and 2 or 3 of them become really strong warriors, then all these 3 are going to fight each other. So this is really sad, and this is really so tragic for humanity as a whole, that is this the way? I mean, is this the fruit of power, that you're going to kill your own family and your own brothers and sisters? Very, very sad thing about power, but that is how power is. You can see all this treachery and this brutality and this wherever there is power, you see corruption like this. So
we want to read a few comments, and then
yeah.
we'll go towards the golden age of the Ottoman Empire. And we started after Murad II's death, and we'll talk about that, but let's first go to the comments. So Arnie is here, and Arnie saying, glory fades when unity breaks. Lesson from the Ottoman history. So yeah, there was a lot of problems with the Ottoman Empire at the end, especially the alliance with Germany, and they didn't have a modern army, and they weren't like really that much scientific as much as the Europeans, but because the Europeans were they were having this renaissance, and they were making now universities, and they were discovering new sciences, and they were discovering new ways to kill each other with all the advanced weapons that they had. And the ships that the British Army had, they like took over the whole world because of their ships and their modern vessels, and all the what were those things, cannons that they used to have, these big cannon guns, and then they made like modern weapons like rifles, and then a lot of things. So the British were also no people to be messed with, because when the British Empire took over, they were like so massive that they started from one end of the world and the other end of to the other end of the world. It was so big that the sun never set on the British Empire, and
at one point.
At one point. So, Arush Fatma is here, and Arush Fatma is saying, listening to you so much that I never hear your voice in my, I even hear your voice in my sleep. I think I'm falling in love with this channel. Thank you, Arush. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for being here. And SNL is saying, yo, bro. Bro, by the time you come back after so many days, we've already forgotten. Suddenly, Asma reminds us, Wali Wonder is live again. So thank you, Essen, for being here, and thank you, Asma, for reminding. People talk about empires rising and falling, but the Ottomans didn't just rule the land, they ruled hearts and faiths for each other. Yes, that's like a really important point, because some of those Ottoman leaders were called the just leaders, because they didn't just believe in killing the opposition, they believed in the rule of law. And that was even better for the people they conquered, because they were like in a lawless state, and even the Europeans were in dark ages. So really and truly, they were so just that they were also just towards their enemies, and they introduced this law which was not only for the Muslims but for all of humanity, and that is where the basis of society really starts to form again. And Mohammed Fazan is saying, it's hard to understand the new people coming into live stream. Please switch to into Urdu. Would we like to do it in Urdu? I think we want to do this in English. I don't know, because we want to clip this in different parts and then re-upload it. So maybe today's live stream is going to be in English. So Janta Mir is saying hey, and Daniel is saying hello. Thank you both for being here. SN Ali is saying, do you think the Ottoman Empire's downfall began from internal corruption or external pressure? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, there was. It's going to be a long answer.
So let me just go through the last few comments. Zantam is saying, good job. Daniel Manzoor is saying, strange how the fall of Ottoman Empire echoes in our unity today, divided borders, divided hearts. And Nimra is here. Nimra is saying, hello, Miss Aneela.
Hello, Nimra.
I really miss you guys. She's also missing us. And yeah, so yeah, the question was, do you think the Ottoman Empire's downfall began from internal corruption or external pressure?
Well, actually, the thing is that when you start to, like, stop being warriors, stop being explorers, stop being, scientific, and you just start having like all the luxuries, and stagnation starts coming in your system, and that's what happens to every every kingship and every dynastic rule, and that's exactly what happened with the Ottomans. And by the time Europe started coming out of their dark ages, and the Renaissance came into Europe, and then came the scientific revolution, and after that just after that came the Industrial Revolution. The Ottomans were not ready for all these new advancements. They had stopped being scientific. They had stopped like being, research oriented. The things that they used to do, propagate in the universities and in the culture, all that had stopped, and they were not right at that time able to be so advanced as to be able to stand against the European navies and the European armies that were laced with rifles and these new type of guns. These Ottomans, they didn't have those. They had their own just like swords. So automatically, when the new battles in the new era, these battles started against them, they were unable to fight. And then this warrior culture had actually ended in them. So what kind of corruption you call this? This is a type of stagnation. And then at the end of the Ottoman Empire, the Europeans, the British and the French, they took Egypt from them, they took Algeria from them, they took all these northern African countries from them, and then they took started taking back all the European countries. And then there was also battles with the Russian Empire, because the Russian Empire was attacking on them from the Caucasus. They wanted to take Armenia, they wanted to take Azerbaijan, they wanted to come inside Turkey. And then there were also battles with the Persian Empire, who was always attacking them, because they thought that some of these lands should belong to them. So the Ottoman Empire was having battles and was having to fight battles from all frontiers, and they couldn't do it because they were not well prepared. Their armies were not strong enough anymore.
So,
yes.
In short, if I would summarize your answer, it's like starts with internal pressures and internal weaknesses, and ends with all the external people now seeing your weaknesses and trying to eliminate you.
Exactly.
So, let's come to the golden age, the golden era of the Ottoman Empire. And there was a young man who was barely 19 years old, and he prepared to finish what generations before him had only dreamed of. I mean, 19 is like a really young age, and even in the Mughal Empire and even in the subcontinent history and the Ottoman history, we see like Mahmud Ghaznavi was like here, he was really young. So we see these young warriors Muhammad bin Qasim, I guess, sorry. So these young warriors taking over such big lands. And in Ottoman Empire's case, it was Mehmed II. And history remembers him as Mehmed the Conqueror. So for centuries, Constantinople had been the jewel no one could claim. Its walls were said to be unbreakable, triple layered stone, guarded by the Sea of Marmara on one side and the Golden Horn on the other. Every empire that tried to take it had failed miserably, and until now, Mehmed studied its weaknesses. He built a massive canyon, iron beast capable of hurling 600-pound stones across Bosphorus. He cut off the Byzantine supply line, blockaded the whole city with hundreds of ships, and rallied nearly 80,000 soldiers, which was a big number, a big number at that time. And then in the spring of 1453, he marched in the Byzantine capital, which was Constantinople. And for 58 days, the thunder echoed against the wall. The Byzantines fought like lions, knowing this was their last stand. And then, just before the dawn of May 29, the gates of Rome fell. The Ottomans flooded in, and the city had stood for 1,000 years as the heart of the Christian East. And now was the capital of Islam's most powerful empire, the Ottoman Empire. And Mehmed entered on horseback, dismounted inside Hagia Sophia, and prayed. And Hagia Sophia is the place which recently Erdogan was like also involved, and he shifted it back to like the mosque status. I don't know what's like really happening with it now, but that's like a really important place for both Muslims and Christians alike. And from that moment, Constantinople was reborn as Istanbul, the crown of the Ottoman world. But the conquest wasn't done. He pushed deeper into Europe, Siberia, Bosnia, Albania, and even Italy feared his armies. To the east, he seized Trebizond and the last Byzantine fortress. Under his reign, the Ottoman Empire transformed from a kingdom of warriors into a machine of governance and culture. He recognized bureaucracy, welcomed scholars and engineers from Persia to Venice, and declared him the Caesar of Rome, a title the Pope refused, but history could not deny. So, of course, if you're taking over Constantinople, you're also taking over all the Christian churches and all the Christian places. So now the Ottomans are not just responsible for Islam, but they're also the leaders of Christians now. So I guess Ottomans were the first ones to like really say that there's not so much differences between the Muslims and the Christians, and there's a lot of similarities, and we should rather unite. And maybe the Pope was initially against this idea, but then after a little while,
no, the popes remained furiously against the Muslims, and popes were responsible for the Crusades so many times. They hurled all the Europeans from all the kingdoms, small kingdoms, to come and join them for these crusades because they hated Islam.
They hated Islam, but there was this alliance between the Ottomans and the Queen of England as well at a certain point of time, and also the Ottomans had alliances with a lot of other countries in their 600-year rule. So we can't
at different
just say
times, maybe yes, but at the end, they knew when the British they took actually the governor of the province of Egypt was rebelling against the Ottomans, and these British people, they said to the Ottoman Empire emperor that let us bring our armies into Egypt, and we were going to protect it for you, and we're going to like stabilize it for you and then give it back to you, but they never gave it back. So their eyes were opened. They did business with France, they did business with Britain, but these people, they started taking one out after another their states, and they at the time of the First World War, that was the reason why the Ottomans allied with Germany, which was the evil of axis of evil.
At that time.
Yeah. So you were talking about Mehmed?
Yeah, Mehmed's fiercest and most staunchest enemy was also Vlad the Dracula. We've all heard and seen Dracula in all of our movies. He's with this fangs, and he's like this person who likes to eat other humans, and he like drinks the blood, and he has special vampire powers. And the king of all these vampires is Dracula. And Dracula had this castle, which was like a very horror type of a place in like this forest where he used to bring people and drink their blood. And so Mehmed was fighting against Vlad the Dracula, and you might know him as the inspiration of like Dracula in like a lot of movies. Vlad had also grown up as a hostage in the Ottoman court, and he was a friend who had turned enemy. Their conflict was vicious, and there was a lot of betrayal and a lot of blood in this conflict. But even Mehmed the Conqueror admired Vlad's courage, reportedly saying, "I cannot take the land from a man who does such marvelous things. So that means that the Ottomans really respected not just themselves and the Muslim people, they also respected their enemies, and they gave respect where it was due. Because if there's like such a fierce warrior and he's doing such marvelous things in his land, so they rather than taking over that place, they actually accepted that he was like such a good ruler and such good for his people, and they just left that place alone and they went to another place where it was more feasible to conquer that land. So saying that they were not just about destroying the whole world, they were also about making the world a better place. So when Mehmed II died in 1481, his empire spanned 3 continents. He had reshaped the world order and left a legacy no sultan could ever and ever ignore. His son Bayezid II, called the Just, took the throne next. And like his father, he valued stability over conquest. He welcomed Jews and Muslims expelled from Spain after 1492, telling his advisors that King Ferdinand had impoverished his kingdom and enriched mine. And that was like, because this king was expelling Muslims and Jews from Spain, and the guy who's taking these people in, he's like, he's getting impoverished and he's getting enriched, and that's like such a big thing. And it was an act of mercy and also an act of strategy. These refugees brought new skills in trade, science, art, turning Istanbul into a melting pot of brilliance. And he also said that treat these Jews similar to that you treat your brothers that are coming from Spain, and anyone who is like treating Muslims different than to the Jews, the king will like personally come and like kill him or like put him in prison, because he wanted the Muslims to treat the incoming Jews the same way. And talk about what's happening today. Like Hitler was responsible for killing like 6 million Jews. No Palestinian killed the Jews. And actually in the Ottoman Empire, we're like welcoming these Jews from Spain.
Yeah.
After the Christians have like kicked them out, and we're like treating them as same as our own Muslim brothers.
Yeah.
And now look at what they're doing in Gaza. They've killed like
60,000 to I think 1 lakh or more people.
That's like such a big number, and Muslims were never against them. If you want like if you want to avenge your forefathers, go and kill the Germans. Or
Not only the Germans.
Yes.
The Jews were persecuted in each and every European country, and they were killed and they were kept in ghettos, which are, slums outside their cities. They were not even allowed to enter their cities, because they thought that they were conspirators and they were, criminal-minded people. So they hated them. All the European countries, they expelled them. They committed genocides against them. Hitler was just the last one of them. And maybe he was thinking that this is a normal thing. Everybody else had done that. The British had done that. Each and in every country. There is a history. You can go to Wikipedia and find out how the Jews were persecuted in Europe. And at the end, what the plan was to expel them from Europe and put them in the heart of the Arab region inside Palestine, put them back over there, and then start the propaganda of anti-Semitism, which they had been doing for so many centuries already. There was this word was, I think, coined after the Jews were kicked out of Europe and they were said to all of you go and settle in Palestine.
You've got a really interesting point, and that's what I was also saying. So after that came Selim, and he's also known as Selim the Grim, and he seized power with fire and steel. So Selim was different, and he didn't just want land, he wanted the soul of the Muslim world. He defeated the Persian Safavids and Chardans in 1514. He turned south to crush the Mamluk sultans of Egypt and Syria. When his armies entered Cairo in 1517, the holy city of Mecca and Medina pledged allegiance to him. The caliphate, the spiritual leadership of Islam, was transferred to the Ottomans. Now, Selim wasn't just a sultan, he was a caliph of all Muslims.
Yes.
So that is the golden time of the Khilafat movement of the Ottomans. And by the time he died in 1520, the empire had grown by 70%. His only son, Suleiman, would carry that torch to the heights no Ottoman had ever reached. They called him the Magnificent, and for good reasons. Suleiman was a warrior, a poet, a lawgiver. He brought a golden age, an era where art, architecture, law flourished under one banner. He wrote Ottoman's legal code, balancing religious law with civil justice. His courts became a place of beauty and brilliance. And Istanbul became the center of the world. But Suleiman was also a conqueror. In 1521, he took Belgrade and Rhodes. Belgrade and Rhodes, and finally defeated the Hungarians in 1526, where King Louis II of Hungary fell in the battle. And when Suleiman found the young king's body, he whispered, "May Allah be merciful to him. He was misled, but was brave." So, because that shows the determination and the wisdom of the Ottoman people, that now he's fighting with his adversary, and when he gets killed in the battlefield, he's like, "May Allah be merciful, he was misled." So that is such
the real Islamic spirit, like
yes. That's not what they tell you today. They just tell you that Muslims are terrorists.
There's this propaganda that Islam was not spread. Islam was spread through the sword. That is a false propaganda, because yes, it is true that there were so many conquests, and these warriors actually opened these countries, these states for Islam. The gates were opened by them, but really the religion came with the preachers, with the teachers that came with them in their armies. And then when those places were conquered, these Sahabas and the Tabaeens and these religious scholars and these teachers, they used to go to these new places and then start preaching Islam and giving their own model, and they're teaching them. So that is how actually Islam was, there was no, just like I said, there was no forced conversion in Islam. There was no concept of that.
Can we see this map, Fazan? So now I'm showing you this map of the Ottoman Empire. When we're talking about 70% increase in the Ottoman territory under Suleiman, we're talking about this area that spans from Egypt towards Central Asia, towards Europe. It's such a big place, and that is where the main, the best land of the world is. That's where the civilization began. And Muslims, the European side that was left alone, and the Americans that are the most advanced people right now. Muslims never weren't that far because they thought that these areas weren't important, and Muslims had all the best places. What is the sound?
Outside.
Oh, that's a dog outside. So Vienna is really important in the Ottoman history, because Constantinople was in the hands of Muslims, and Muslims were now going towards Europe. But they fought battles over Vienna many times. So, in 1529, Suleiman advanced towards Vienna for, for the first time. The Ottoman machine met its limits. Rain disease, European fortifications stopped the greatest army on earth. He withdrew not defeated, but aware that Europe would no longer fall so easily. Still, his influence stretched beyond borders, and his alliances with France and his dominance in the Mediterranean and his naval power that battled Spain and Portugal across the seas. Under Suleiman, the Ottomans were at the peak, and they were feared and also admired and were totally unstoppable. Yet behind the splendor lay seeds of decline. Suleiman's later years were shadowed by court intrigues and betrayals. His beloved wife, Haram, I guess Haram was also depicted in a few dramas, and his grand vizier fought for influence. He died in 1566 on his campaign, his body hidden in his tent so the army wouldn't lose heart. He left behind an empire so grand it seemed eternal. But no empire is eternal. No empire stays for like the whole of human existence. Every empire has its fall. Like the Americans are now falling because we think that Americans are almighty and they're going to be the superpower for the rest of the human history. But sadly, no. Yes. So I'd like to move on to, I guess, Aneela, to discuss, give her few cents on this golden time of the Ottoman Empire, and then we'll continue towards the fall of the empire. Yes. So what do you think?
Yes, definitely it was the golden time, and the way you've told this whole history and how this Suleiman, king, he conquered so many European countries all the way up to Hungary. And Austria, the Vienna is the capital of Austria. So he couldn't go into Austria, but he conquered all the land up to Hungary, and Romania and this Moldova up to all these were under the banner of the Ottomans. And really, it's amazing that Muslims ruled these three continents. This one dynasty, this one empire ruled in three continents. One, the continent of the Roman Empire, the other, the Asia, the empire of the Byzantines that was crushed, and then all this Muslim Arabian Peninsula, and then this Egypt that used to be the kingdom of the pharaohs, and then all going through Libya and Morocco and Tunisia, all the way up to the end of North Africa. And then, of course, you just told us that the King Suleiman also fought against Christian kingdoms in Spain and Portugal, and his battles never ended. And I think that was the peak of this empire. And after him, the next who came in power started becoming less tilted towards battle, and just they wanted to be like kings, And I think few generations after Suleiman, the empire started to like fall or crumble, and all around the empire it started having to face battles, because once your enemies or your neighbors, they know that you have become weak, or you don't want to fight battles and fight wars, then they want to attack you even more. They think that they deserve the lands that you have taken from them centuries ago. Now they want them back. So that's what happens. That's always happening. Even today, you know, we see wars all over the world. I mean, Ukraine and Russia, they are fighting a war. Europe has been fighting so many wars, right up till the First World War. I'm going to tell you this thing very interesting, that right up till the World War I, Europe was like totally like dipped in war culture. There were so many wars inside Europe between countries and kingdoms, and very long wars. There was a 30-year long war, and there was another war that was called 80-year long war. And there were so many wars that European kingdoms rarely had any moment of peace. There was no year in the history of Europe that had no war. So these countries and kingdoms and little kingdoms and big kingdoms inside Europe, they were always battling against each other. There was no unity between them. And then after this industrial revolution, and when they had all these big armies and big factories for making these arms, and then they had all these navies, they started warring against humanity. Like they went all the way to the Americas, they conquered those, enslaved those peoples, they enslaved all the people of Africa, they enslaved so many Asian countries, and that is something that diverted them from fighting with each other for some little while. But still they did fight, still fight with each other. And they were, even when they were not fighting with each other inside Europe, they were fighting with each other on the borders of those colonies that they had conquered all over the world. So Europe was in this culture of disunity and battle. And when these Europeans stopped fighting battles with each other, they did that just after the First World War, just after the Second World War. In the First World War, that Germany and France and Britain, they were all fighting against each other. But after World War II, they decided that they should be united. And where did they learn this lesson of unity? They made the European Union just after the few years after World War II. And what was the core of this European Union was 2-3 things. One was one currency, single currency, and then they would allow all the people of the European Union to travel freely, visa free, all over the place. And these were exactly the two things that had been like instated in the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire had one currency, and they had one language, and they had one citizenship. And that is, something that they imitated. They did everything to break down the Ottoman Empire, destroy it, balkanize it, and tear it down into pieces and pieces. And they took the example of the Ottomans and tried to make the same type of thing in Europe, which has, it's already breaking down. Within 20-30 years, they can't keep the European Union. Brexit has already happened. Other countries.
The question is, will the Muslims become like this superpower again?
There's not going to be a single empire, of course, because of the reason that there's so much population has increased, exploded. But inshallah, there will be one single Muslim empire when the Mahdi, Hazrat Imam Mahdi, is going to return. It's not going to be very far away. It's going to be, close by.
Yeah, so we have been discussing the rise of the Ottoman Empire. And now we're going towards the fall of the Ottoman Empire, but we have to, from history, we have to understand why the Ottoman Empire fell, so we know the mistakes that they made, and then whatever you guys were hearing about the rise of Ottoman Empire, we should also be impressed by that. So now we can recreate the same sort of situation and make this whole Muslim caliphate that spans all over the world, and it can be such a great the dream of Muslims,
Yeah.
because the Khilafat has been the most important part. Democracy is not Islam. I guess Khilafat is Islam. And under Khilafat, were there many nations? No. Nations came under democracy. So there's like this difference between the way we're doing things these days, and democracy might not be the best answer. Socialism tried to come in, and Marxism tried to come in, and I guess democracy was the best of the evils, and democracy is a system in which the majority of the people decide which
Tyrant is going to rule the
tyrant, but apparently the option is like there's one bad president and there's like another bad president, and they have to choose between two evils, and it's like democracy is not a good system. And plus, when the people are so vulnerable, especially in the third world countries, people who don't even have food to eat, you can like just give them food for a day or two, get their votes, and then never go and see them in the next 4 years, and then when the next tenure comes, then you go and make your fake promises. So democracy might not be the solution. Maybe if Muslims come under caliphate, it's like and unfortunately the Arab leaders, the Qataris, the Emiratis, the Saudis, and all these rich Arab leaders, they were the ones to like end this Khilafat movement, and they are the ones responsible.
Khilafat movement, when you say, that was a movement that went on in the subcontinent only. That is called the Khilafat movement.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for misguiding you guys, but yeah, I mean the Khilafat is like is a dream that should come true. So when we're talking about the decline of the Ottoman Empire, and after Suleiman's death, the empire he built stood like a shining palace, but the foundations had already begun to crack. His son, Suleiman II's son, took power, and the golden age slowly began to fade, because Selim wasn't a warrior like his father. He loved comfort more than campaigns, wine more than war councils. So he handed real power to his Grand Vizier, Mehmed Pasha. Pasha, we also heard this name a lot of times in a lot of dramas and a lot of movies. And he was the most capable man in that empire. While Selim relaxed, Pasha held the empire together, signing treaties, commanding fleets, and expanding diplomacy. And when Pasha was assassinated, everything changed. How was Pasha assassinated? We'll also, in a future episode, talk about that as well. And Selim's rule saw one defining event, the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. So the Ottomans faced a united Christian fleet, Spain, Venice, and the Pope's forces, and unfortunately the Ottoman Empire lost. It was a stunning blow. For the first time in centuries, the invincible Ottoman navy was crushed, yet the empire's vast resources allowed it to rebuild quickly. Within a year, new fleets sailed again, and still a shadow had fallen. The myth of an Ottoman invincibility was broken in Selim's time. So when Selim II died, his son Murad III took over, and he was intelligent but paranoid, ruling through astrologers, eunuchs, and his mother. So yeah, we were talking about this earlier that this sort of things started to come in. Like, why do you need astrology when you have Islam? And even the kings used to look at where the lines on their hands are going and believe in them. I mean, that is not like, and plus their mothers were a lot of influence, bad influence. So the harem, once a symbol of royal luxury, became a cage of politics. Sultans no longer rode into battles. They ruled behind silk curtains, manipulated by whispers and fears. And taxes soared, inflation spiraled. The Janissaries, who were once empire's disciplined elite, grew corrupt and uncontrollable. They had become a powerful political class that could make or break the sultans, and that's exactly what they did. So, even so, the empire didn't fall overnight. Murad's army still marched, still conquered, still fought Persia and Austria, but while the borders moved, the hearts of the empire began to rot. By the time Mehmed II became Sultan, even victory carried a heavy price. And in 1596, at the Battle of Kiristes, the Ottoman defeated Habsburgs, but a home rebellion spread like wildfire, and the empire was bleeding from within. And when Mehmed died, he left a throne weighed down by unrest. And that is also where the Janissaries also were responsible for killing some of their leaders. We'll talk about that. Yes, do you want to add something to that?
No, you can.
Yeah. So after that, in Emma's reign, he was haunted by losses. He ended the brutal custom of killing loyal brothers, an act meant to prevent civil wars, and spared his brother Mustafa. It was a humane decision, but one would haunt back and come back and haunt the dynasty. Mustafa would later ascend the throne, but was unstable, mentally unfit to rule. He talked to ghosts and released birds from their cages, believing they were his soldiers, and left decisions to his mother. In a single generation, the Ottomans went from warriors to prisoners of their own palace. So what's this fascination that they have now become so rich that they're in silk clothes, and then now they're talking about astrology, and they're releasing birds, and they're talking to ghosts, and also black magic, and also these evil women in the palaces, they're like doing magic and stuff. And what is happening with these people? What do you think about such acts?
It's like, getting into all those luxuries and, all those, what do you call that, ayashi. So that's the, tragedy of every empire, of every dynastic rule, that once you get to the peak, your next coming generation think that you have all the power, you don't have to go to, and once your father does not make you a warrior, then you will not make your son a warrior either. So the whole thing like blows back to you. And the day the king stops being on the horseback, just think that the empire is going to not last very long after that. And so that happened at the end, in the last century. All the neighboring empires had become very strong, and just like I said before, the Ottomans had to fight wars with the Russians, with the Persians, with the Europeans, and with even their own governors in Egypt and Algeria and Morocco. these countries were also getting out of hand, and so many wars, and all those new armies from all the sides were becoming stronger, and the Ottomans were getting weaker in their will. At one time, I read somewhere that the word automatic came from Ottomans because the Ottomans, they were like invincible, bionic or something like that. That word was taken into Europe as automatic. So, but now they were not automatic anymore. They were now, weak men. So weak men cannot, they don't have the hearts and the, arms to fight back and rule the world. So what happened was, when they started losing these battles all around them, the British and the French, they came in and they told them that we are your friends and we can help you, and why don't you take debt from our banks. And then when they had to fight against the Russians, the British would come and say that we want to help you, take our debt from our banks and buy the weapons from us with that debt.
Still they lost the war even with the Russians.
And they were at the end so much indebted. Under these, the last 2-3 emperors were so much under debt and the pressure of debt, that they literally, the British and the French, they started dictating their terms to these emperors. They said, you give this such and such land to us for cultivating our, agriculture. They turned so much land into agriculture that is going to feed Europe now. And then at the end, in the last 2-3 emperors, they started forcing the emperor to allow the Jews to return to Palestine. And the aliyahs began, and what they said to these dying emperors was that the Jews are very skilled and they have a lot of money and they are excellent bankers also, and just let them come in your country, and they are going to bring industry, and they are going to bring money and capital, and you're going to get better. So the emperor, the Ottoman emperors, they allowed the Jews to come back in droves and come back right in the heart of Palestine. The Palestinian people revolted several times, a lot of times. They went to the Ottoman emperor, they wrote to him so many times, and they said that we don't want these Jews in our country because they are purchasing all our land. They are making us disown our properties and our lands, because they are better artisans. They are better at their art and their skills, and even maybe better in this agriculture. So they are just taking away all this thing because they are better than us, but we cannot compete with them. But you have to kick them out again because they are destroying us. So, but they didn't. The emperors didn't listen because they were so much in debt
to the British Empire
and the French.
And the French Empire.
The banks, the banking system was one of the reason for the destruction and fall of the Ottoman Empire. Because the Muslims, they weren't aware of this system. Even today, we are not aware of how the banking system is actually destroying the whole of humanity.
Yes, it's like the oldest way of the Jews, that they give you loans and then they take like sood. What is sood called? Interest on that loans, and that interest is so much that now you're only financing the interest and you're not even paying off the capital. And it's like debt is so humongous that generations are enslaved due to the debt. And first it was just a single Jew giving debt to a single person or his family. Now they like have central banks and they're giving debt to nations, and now nations are in debt, and generations in these nations are in debt, and they will be in debt. And it's like such. What about the francophone currencies? Because France was taking like giving 100 million for the uranium it was taking out of Africa, and it was making electricity from that 100 million worth of uranium, and it was reselling that electricity to Europe for $93 billion. Like how much, if you multiply that, how much times is that? 930 times the price
Yeah.
that they're taking from Africa. Like this is such a bad
Right.
system.
That is later when, you know, they took colonized whole of Africa.
Yeah.
And you know, all these the upper belt of Africa was almost totally occupied by France, and today also they call it Franc Afrique.
Afrique.
And today also these 26 or 30 countries which come under the ECOWAS are still have French language, and their currencies are still to this day controlled by the French banks, and they just get a little portion of their currency. If they have businesses and trade,
But good news that France is falling. 5 prime
Yes.
ministers have been changed in the last 2 years,
Yes,
and
but-
the African
but
countries are
just-
now rebelling, and they're saying
Yes,
that
but just imagine this thing, that these people who have made the United Nations, they were ruling the whole world through the United Nations, and on what slogan? The slogan of democracy. From the day one, they say, we want to bring democracy to the people, we want to give them liberties and freedoms and all that, and yourself what you are doing is that in new ways you are still to this day enslaving the people of Africa. So what kind of, you know, under that beautiful 3-piece suit and that white collar, what is the soul, the dark and ugly soul inside your you know, self, that is these you know, Europeans and these people who are still enslaving the humanity, and they know it. Like they preach democracy to our countries. They attacked Afghanistan. When Bush attacked Afghanistan, he said, we want to bring democracy. These are fanatic Islamist Sharia people who want to, they're extremists and they want to enslave their women, and they this and that, and we want to bring democracy in Afghanistan. And this is their real faces. They don't want democracy. They just want to like grab all these countries, grab all their resources, and they would support the worst dictator in each of these countries if and only if they were collude with them to sell all the resources of that country freely, like in cents and in, you know, pesos, and just give it to them, and just they will let you rule your country. But the moment you want to do something good for your people, you want to ask for you know, true value of your resources, they're going to come and start battling with you and topple your government and do conspiracies against you. Assassinations.
That's what's been happening. Do we want to go towards a few comments?
Yeah,
And
sure.
then we'll continue towards our discussion. So, Sidra is saying, they lost the empire, but the idea of caliphate never died. That's such a beautiful thing to say. Riman Mansoor is saying, hello, after so many days I see you. Do you think modern Turkey still carries the legacy of Ottoman dream? Yes, that's a very nice question, and we're gonna just answer that. जो लोग समझते हैं कि ऑटोमन सिर्फ एक किंगडम था, उसका आज का लाइव देखना चाहिए. Good job, Miss Aneela.
Thank you.
Murtaza is saying every empire rises with vision and falls with ego. Ottoman story proves it perfectly. And Asma is saying 1,000 years of history, yet every line feels connected to our present time. Yes, we need to understand our history because we're repeating the same mistakes again and again. Those who never read history repeat the mistakes of their parents. Sana Ali saying, hello, my love. Hello, Sana. So, Dracula in the Romanian language today, Dracula means the devil. That's Mohammed Fazad. And Sana Ali saying, hello, my beautiful lady, Miss Aneela.
Thank you, Beta.
You remember? And Saad Sari saying hello. It wasn't just an empire, it was a civilization that carried the weight of an entire Ummah's dream. And सुलेमान की गोल्डन एज थी, मेरा तो मंडे से ही ट्रैजिक एज शुरू हो गई. And इरफान बाजवा saying ha ha Sana. And I don't know what's going on. सना सिंह वली की पार्टी में सिर्फ हिस्ट्री डिस्कस होती है, तुम्हारी बकवास नहीं. आई गेस देयर फाइटिंग इन द चार्ट्स.
So
yes, there's some fight going on. So where should I read? Last comment. Nadeem Bhatt is saying Ottoman Empire proves the true power isn't land or wealth, it's vision and unity. Great job. And Fatma says, I need to make some discussions urgently. What are your office hours? I've come to the office twice, but it was closed both times. How are you, Wali? Who's Fatma? Fatma, can you message so I can give you my number and then you can call me and come to the office and we'll discuss on a time.
Okay, so what I wanted to add is,
Yeah.
you mentioned the Khilafat movement, and Khilafat movement is such a beautiful thing in our history of the subcontinent, which proves how the people, the Muslims of the subcontinent, were attached by their hearts with the Muslim caliphate. And they were so between the Ottoman Empire and the Mughal Empire in the subcontinent, there was this Persian Empire also, which was also a Muslim empire, but they had battles with the Ottomans off and on. So they didn't have this, connection with the people, but because we were here and we were so much in love with our history and our, Islamic thing and the caliphate, that was started by the Prophet himself and that was taken over by these people and kept and held and secured by the Ottomans and to the last point up till World War I. The Muslims of the subcontinent were really attached to this caliphate to the end. And when the First World War was going on and it started, the British Empire and the people, they wanted all these soldiers from the subcontinent to come and fight with them against the Ottomans in different fronts. And the World War was actually going on all over the world. There was fronts against the Germans, there were fronts against the Russians. So the British wanted to employ these soldiers at different fronts, and the Muslims started this movement called the Khilafat movement, and they said that we boycott, we rebel against you and we will only join your forces when you promise us that the caliphate is not going to be broken down, the caliphate is going to stay. And the British promised them. And they have a long history and a very deep history of broken promises, of false promises, of lies and intrigues. So that's the story of the connection of the people, Muslims of the subcontinent with the Ottoman caliphate was so strong that even when the caliphate broke down, Pakistan and here the subcontinent broke down, and this became two countries, Pakistan became an independent country, they have had first-hand connection with the Turkish people, and they have always been brotherly with them, and we have always had very deep friendship and connection with. This is one thing I like about Pakistan, that we are so deeply at friends with the Arabs, with the Saudis, and we are so deep friends with the Turks, and we're so deep friends with even Iranians. We're friends with so many. And the thing about Turkey, that Pakistan is the only country of the world that has not recognized Armenia as a free country to this day, just because Armenia was against Turkey. And they have always blamed Turkey for the genocide of the Armenians and all that. So why? I mean, look at this history that we have. And I think we should also now turn towards the contemporary era today, about Erdogan, about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk was one of those people, because when the World War I ended or even began, there were so many movements in all these provinces of the caliphate, in which the Arab ethnicities, like the Syrians, were encouraged by so many factors, outside factors, to fight for their independence, like the Syrian independence. And the Iraqis were encouraged by this movements called the Al-Fatah movement. Fatah means young. There were Fatah movements all around the Arab provinces, and who was behind them? The French and the British were behind these movements. They propagated, they encouraged, they had, because they had colonized so much of these lands, they called the people from these students from these lands to their own countries, their colleges and universities, and there they gave them this political awareness that you need to be free, and the Turks are like subjugating you, and this and that. And these, even the Turkish boys, they began with this Young Turk movement, and they were themselves the young men who came back to Turkey to topple the Ottoman last emperor. So that's another phase of the history of how the Ottomans were made to be dissolved, because there was so much propaganda and so much movements encouraged by the British and the French that actually broke down all the provinces into different and once the World War I, when this World War was starting, the Ottomans got to know how badly these French and the British people, they wanted to destroy the Ottomans. And that was the reason that instead of allying with the French or the British, who had been given them all these debts and enslaving them in their debts, they decided to ally with Germany. So
Germans promised that they would reinvent their armies and give them better ships and give them modern weapons. And it just so happened that the Germans lost, and also the Ottomans lost, and that was the final blow, I guess. And Palestine, there was Egypt was already created, and Palestine, and then Turkey, and all of these places that were created after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And Ataturk, is he like a good guy or a bad guy? And the modernization and the, at a certain time, these Muslim clerics became a pain in the neck for the Ottoman Empire as well, because Ataturk believed that these Muslim clerics were like the problem, and he loaded all these
He brought
Muslim.
all the westernization
Hmm.
into Turkey, and he was, the leader of the Young Turks.
Hmm.
He was westernized. He had spent time in France and other European countries, and he wanted, he had this whole idea that religion was the reason for the backwardness of the Ottomans, and if they didn't have all these, backward ideas of religion and all that, they would have, modernized themselves and remained up to, the mark and all that. And that thing, because of that thing, he discouraged religion. He discouraged women for having their veils. And of course, modernization, if you are talking about education, if you're talking about scientific, development and technology in industry, that is a good thing. But when you say modernism should be in clash with the dictates of Islam, which is actually the most modern religion, it has brought just the ideas of justice and peace and knowledge. Acquiring knowledge is, a backbone of Muslim culture, and so that is something Ataturk did wrong, and he took the Turks, the whole Turkish, country, away from religion and try to westernize it and modernize it in the just like the Western people were. And Erdogan is that person who has come back in Turkey after so many decades with the message of, the moderate Islam. We should talk about him because Erdogan is great, has great things he has brought with him, great ideas for his country, for his nation. And he is a pro-Islamic, and that's why the secular elements in the country, they were just, against him, and they have tried to defeat him in the elections. They have tried to have a coup against him in 2016, you remember? So you would like to
Share
talk
the
about
article?
those, we will talk about
Yeah,
them.
so Erdogan, if I'll show you the article if I have
Ye
it.
wala. This is
So, can we see the article? Yes. Erdogan's agenda: new Ottoman ambition or pan-Islam seal. So, Turkish aggression in at least 5 countries has been headlined in international news reports just in month. June 2020, these accounts focused on President Tayyip Erdogan's latest intrusions into Israel, Libya, Iraq, Syria, and Greece. Meanwhile, it's noteworthy of those of us who focus on international religious freedom, that whenever Turkey moves in, religious freedom moves out, where there can be no lasting freedom of worship for faith unless it confronts with Turkey's Islamic practices. In Israel, an article was released on June 15 by Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs reporting that Turkey is working non-stop to gain influence on the Temple Mount in the city of Jerusalem in the East Jerusalem neighborhood. So, Erdogan sometimes he's playing on both ends, but we can't say that Erdogan is standing up for, he thinks that Islam is like the greatest religion, and the Ottoman Empire and the Islamic culture and the Islamic values, they were the best values, and they were the best, the golden age of Muslim era, like we discussed up towards the 1600s. It was such a great time for Muslims, and Erdogan, rather than despising that time like Ataturk and like the secular Turkish leaders that came after Ataturk, Erdogan is trying to revive the spirit of Islam. He's also doing it with these dramas that they have created in Turkey, Osman Ghazi and Ertugrul Ghazi, and uh, it's like reviving the spirit of Islam, and
Yeah.
which is a very good thing for the Muslim Ummah.
Mhm.
We might need that type of a revival. But sometimes we also have to disagree with Erdogan's policies, because sometimes, like just like in Libya, I think
Syria, you're saying.
Libya as well,
Mhm.
when Gaddafi was falling, wasn't Erdogan like
No, no.
responsible for the
No,
fall
no,
of
no, no.
Gaddafi? And also in Syria, he has been fighting double wars. So,
No, in Libya, I'll just correct you.
mm,
For Libya, it was the NATO forces and the Western forces that all came and bombed Gaddafi and his palaces and all his garrisons.
mm,
And they did it in, just a few days. And all these, rebels, they were backed by European countries.
mm,
And they, he is Tony Blair was the first person to come and shake hands with Gaddafi, and he made he convinced him to take all the dissidents that were in Europe back in Libya. And when they came and they were in the prisons even, and then they started this rebellion movement and made all those camps and all that. That is another story. But after Libya has fallen, and it was broken down into two poles. One was backed by these Western forces, and the other was led by Khalifa Haftar, an ex-general of the Gaddafi army. So there was total chaos for several years. And then, first of all, Turkey and Russia, they came inside Syria, and they forced the US. Donald Trump, when it was his first, presidency, he announced that the US and NATO forces are coming out of Syria, because Russian forces and Turkish forces had came inside, and they forced these Western forces to expel. And after that, Russia and Turkey, both of them, they went inside Libya also several years later after Gaddafi. And Turkey came on the side of this camp in Tripoli, which was originally Western backed, and Russia came at the side of Khalifa Haftar, and they began this new phase in which again the European and Western forces became irrelevant. I mean, that is something. I think this is big strategic moves in which these two countries, Russia and Turkey, have colluded in a way to make the Western NATO forces, or whatever forces they had, make them irrelevant. And not only that, I was just mentioning before we started that Turkey has also made friends in so many other African countries, and it has offered them with strategic alliances and so many other things. It is trying to this is what I'm talking about is a strategy of internationalism. Like our leaders in Pakistan, maybe they wouldn't be interested in going in Africa and making friends over there and giving them political alliances or strategic alliances. Maybe they're doing, maybe they're not. But that is big thing about Erdogan, that he has not thought of just ruling Turkey, but he has thought of making alliances with so many countries around the world. And these moves has strengthened not only the country, and also he has always been a very strong voice for the Palestinians. He has done very historic moves for the rights of the Palestinians. But right now, yes, in Syria, there is a lot of talk that Turkey is on the wrong side, and he was the one who made Bashar al-Assad leave, and this al-Shara who has come in Syria. Maybe he is because he was one of the rebels. So, of course, there are controversies, but again, the idea of Erdogan, of the neo-Ottomanism, is a big idea. I mean, it's an idea for uniting other countries and making alliances with other countries, especially in the Muslim world. So that's one thing. And another thing you're going to talk about is, I think.
First of all, the people are asking. So there is Ahsan Ali. He's saying, Miss Aneela, I really appreciate your knowledge. Could you please tell me the name of your book? And Nimra is saying, also asking about the book. So I have given your website, which is aneelashahzad.com. So could you tell more about your book and
yes, my book is
where they can find it?
Geopolitics Framework and Dynamics in a multipolar world. It's very interesting. It's a very, a wide topics are covered in it, and it is a book in which I have tried to give the viewpoint of our people. If we are people living in the East, living in this area of, not, we're the global South actually, and we are actually the East, and we are actually what they call us as the developing world. And if we are part of this world, how does the world look like for us? How do we see the world? Because all the literature on geopolitics that I've been reading, and all of you might be reading, and what we find in the mainstream media is all the angle of the Western world, the way the world looks like when you are standing in the West and looking at us. But what if we are standing and sitting in the East, and now how the world looks for us? So in my book, I have tried to unravel how geopolitics works, what is the philosophical underpinning of geopolitics, and how there are so many case studies which show us that how the people of the world have been wronged. Our people, our countries have been wronged for so many decades, since the end of the world wars, maybe. Even after our independence, we are not really independent, we are not really free. So to understand all that and to articulate all that, so make it, when you put something down in black and white and you give all the references and give all the details, that thing becomes, part of the knowledge bank of a people, I think. I think that God let me do this. I should thank Allah for that.
That is great. That is great. And you can find all our books on aneelashahzad.com. We'll also, when we end the live stream, we'll attach the link in the description as well of the book and the website. And it's like you guys should support Aneela in her endeavors so she can continue on writing more books.
Yeah.
I think there are more books on the way. What's your next book, and when do you think it's going to release?
First, we wanted to add this thing that, geopolitics is a subject which is not really taught in mainstream universities, but I think it is a subject that is very vital for any country to understand its identity, to understand its pathway towards progress and the future. So if we don't have this subject, if we don't think about our world in this framework, then we won't be able to identify ourselves in the regional framework, in the global framework, and we will not be able to do something for our country. So that is how vital the subject is. And one of the main reasons for writing this book was to encourage young people to take this subject seriously. And even if you're students of international affairs or political science, or even if you're students of journalism, maybe you can have this subject with you, you can read about it, and you can explore it, and you will know the world better, you will know your own country better, you will know your region and the globe better. And you will become like, a more productive member of the society.
Mm. That is great, and it's been like 2 hours, and I guess I was watching 2 hours and 10 minutes since we started the stream, so it's like a long while.
So I
And,
wanted to also add this thing that
yes, I'll
Bob-
go towards the article. Also, I wanted to say that I did talk till the 16th century, but the 17th century, sorry, the 16th and the 17th century are really important, and the 19th century of the Ottoman Empire is really important, but it's like 600 years of history, so we can't just talk it out in like 2 hours, because these things have a lot of depth and a lot of information on them. So might be that we'll upload more videos. Maybe we'll not stream it, we'll just upload videos, but we'll give you more content on the Ottoman Empire, because it's such an interesting topic to talk about. And coming towards another article, do you want to talk about pan-Turkism and its impact in geopolitics?
Yes.
So the article says from September 27 to November 10th, there was a war between Azerbaijan and Armenian troops over the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh that received the attention of the whole international community. We not only witnessed the great support of Turkey and President Tayyip Erdogan to Azerbaijan's President Ibrahim towards the war effort, but at the same time, other members of the Turkic Council, comprising of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan and Hungary, as an observer state, declared their support for Azerbaijan's cause. These are obvious manifestations of pan-Turkic ideology that are strongly prevalent in these countries.
Yeah.
And it goes on to explain what is pan-Turkism. You can explain that, and what is the difference between neo-Ottomanist and pan-Turkicist Turkicist ideology.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Very interesting,
yeah.
Pan-Ottomanism is something that unites Muslims, the Ummah. And Pan-Turkism is something that unites the Turkic people. When the early migrations happen, these Turkic people are white-skinned people. They are not Semites. We are Semites. We are brown-colored people. But the Turkic people are Japhite peoples. They are the white-skinned people. And they are like one of the very few white-colored peoples who have entered the realm of Islam. But in the early migrations, these Turkic people, who were also like present in some European countries, but basically they were based in Turkey. And when the early migrations happened, these Turkic tribes, many of them went over to Azerbaijan and went over to the Central Asian countries, and they went over to all of this, not only the Central Asian countries, but even some of the Mongols, descents are mixed with Turkic descent also. So now when Tayyip Erdogan came into power, he talked about this Turkic ethnicity and the unity between these people. And that is something that has really brought so much in for Turkey, because Turkey portrays itself as the leader of the Turkic people. And all these Central Asian countries, they've been having the pan-Turkic organizations or conferences and meetings with Turkey invited with them and all that. And Azerbaijanians are also Turkic people. And although they are majority Shia people, and Iran is so good in uniting all the Shia people. Iran is friends with the Shias in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, and everywhere. There are Shia populations. Even in Pakistan, Iran is very close to them. But there's only one Shia people who don't make friends with Iran, and those are the Azerbaijanians, because they make friends with Turkey. And in their battle with Armenia, because Pakistan is also related with this, anti-Armenian thing, and like that's another thing. We don't need to talk about this war, but Turkey has stood behind Azerbaijan in their war against Armenians, and they have allowed, this whole thing has allowed the Azerbaijanians to win that war. And winning that war puts a stamp on this thing that Turkey can be a real friend of the Turkic people, and that brings them closer. So Turkey is leading two types of ideas. One is neo-Ottomanism, and one is pan-Turkism, Turkism. So it's all, it's great ideas bring great things around you. And our leaderships, they don't have big ideas. That's what I'm trying to point out, that we don't talk about the Ummah, or all the people. Maybe we could at least talk about all the Muslims of the subcontinent. Our leadership never talks about it. So that's the difference. Then when you have good and big ideas, big things come towards you.
That is great. That is great. So that was a lot of knowledge and a lot of talking in one live stream, and I'm so glad that we had so many listeners. Even though we were doing our live stream, I guess we didn't do any live stream last week. And thank you all for coming and joining us and listening to us, and for all the wonderful comments. And we always love and appreciate you guys. And do remember to like, share, and subscribe as much as possible, because it's like a free way to promote our live streams. And with that, unfortunately, it's all the time we have for today. We've missed a lot of things, I guess, a lot of details in this Ottoman Empire, and we'll do other live streams and other videos on this as well. And the last points that Aneela discussed about the Ottomans and the Turks, and the Turkic Ottoman spirit that is still alive today, and how Tayyip Erdogan is planning the whole future, is like an amazing thing. And we hope that all of you guys had fun. And with that, I'd like to say bye-bye. Do you have any final words that you want to say before we go?
Yeah, just one thing, that think big, dream big, and make big goals. I mean, that's what makes you a great person, and the great nations become great because they have big purpose, big dreams, big ideals, big goals.
And I'd like to say that Khilafat is going to come again. You just have to dream big, dream that Khilafat comes again, and it comes to all Muslim nations. So with that, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. We'll be back very soon.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. And Allah Hafiz to all of our
Thank you.
viewers.
Allah Hafiz.